Everybody, and welcome to the SwitchGrocery truLOCAL show. Maybe I'll call it truLOCAL show. truLOCAL is a guest on our show today, and we have Nicole here from truLOCAL itself. Let me tell you, she will be joining us on Instagram as well right now. We're live on Facebook. We are live on LinkedIn, Twitter, pretty much everywhere. So we're so excited to have her here. And if you don't know me, I'm Neha. I am the co-founder of Switch Grocery. We're an online grocery store. We ship innovative foods across Canada. And truLOCAL, if you don't know truLOCAL, oh man, truLOCAL is the meat delivery company in Canada. They source meat from local farmers, and they ship. I'm saying we ship because I'm taking all the credit, and they ship all the way to your door across Canada. And Nicole, do you want to come on live onto our Instagram as well and send me a request? And tonight, we're actually going to be talking about the meat industry because Nicole, as I would call her, is an insider to the meat industry. That's how I'm going to call her. She's worked in a meat store for a very long time, maybe 10 years, and now she works for truLOCAL as their procurement and fulfillment manager. I hope I got that right, Nicole. And she pretty much has all the secrets. We're going to be talking about why meat is a secret industry. Is it a secret industry? We're going to be talking about claims like free range. We're going to be talking about what does raised without antibiotics mean. We're going to be talking about practical, pick Nicole's brain on cooking and all of the meat tips. So we're now officially live also on Instagram.
There might be a little
Hello.
bit of... Are we good? Are we connected?
Yes, we're connected. Hi.
Hey. Hello, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
All
Hi,
the
Nicole.
followers that are joining. Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Followers that are joining. Hello.
Let's talk about meat interview. And I'm just putting the title on Instagram. And if you're watching this live, we are actually on two channels. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and we are on YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn. Like, we're just everywhere tonight. Hi, everybody.
Trying to angle myself to look at both cameras and see everybody. I want to see everybody on each thing. So I'm looking up and down.
So the first 2 minutes of the show, we just spent saying hi, welcoming everybody. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Karen. Hi, Lori. Hi, Joanna. Bonjour. Hi, Shalini. Welcome, everybody. And as I was saying, Irma's here from truLOCAL. Hi, Irma. As I was saying, this is going to be a fire interview. I'm Neha from Switch. I get to interview Nicole, I am doing the intro again because for all the people who are joining, Nicole, I've pretty much called her the meat insider. And she's going to tell us all about her career work. She's going to unpack meat claims with us. And then we're going to pick her brain on, I'm someone that gets very easily intimidated by meat. So I'm going to be asking her a bunch of questions on making my meat life so much easier.
Let's do it.
Hi, Nicole. Tell us about how you landed up in this career.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have a quick story, but it's been the last 15 years of my life, right? So, I pretty much started working at a local butcher shop in Toronto when I was 17 years old. So I was in high school still when I started working in meat, I guess technically. So I was working as a counter staff all throughout school, and then I kind of finished up with school, and I was at a point in my life where I was like, what did I want to do with my life? But at the same time, I fell in love with the food industry. I fell in love with this very niche product. I worked in a butcher shop that was very local, very high quality. Really liked connecting people with food. Really liked teaching people how to cook and giving people a holistic style butchery. So nose to tail kind of eating. So I fell in love. I had a passion for the industry. I loved learning about it. And then in 2019, I found truLOCAL, and they were looking for a fulfillment and procurement manager. So I thought that'd be a perfect fit and next step in my career. And then I moved to truLOCAL, and in March. I think it's going to be 4 years. It's 4 years in March. So yeah, I moved to
Cheers.
truLOCAL. I connect. Cheers. Yeah. Actually was like, yeah, it is my anniversary, like my work anniversary. So I started like working with the suppliers there. I like read up on truLOCAL. I really liked what they were doing. I really liked how they were still like similar to where I was. They were connecting people to farmers, really small independent farmers, giving opportunity to sell direct to consumers. So it was really on brand with what I was passionate about. And the rest is history. And I kept on learning, kept on growing, and I have a little bit of a lot to say about this industry. Good things to say about this industry.
So I have a question about when we first talked, we talked about meat. The meat industry seems to be a very secretive industry. Like it's just you go to if you go to a grocery store, you pick it up from the shelf, but there's no visibility into, who cut that meat that day, or how was the animal grazed, or anything like that. Do you think that that's by choice? Like, do you think maybe Canadians, we don't want to see that side of it, or do you think that that's a fault within the industry, that the industry doesn't show that side? Right. It wasn't until honestly I ordered my box from truLOCAL that I was like, oh, okay, there's somebody talking about what happens behind the scenes.
Yeah, so like I definitely think that the meat industry is kind of like almost taboo, or people don't really like to connect to it, just because of like the what kind of like, obviously we're raising these animals for food. There is like, the death factor involved, but we are raising these animals for food. And I feel like there's a disconnect or a kind of a stigma around that. So I think that we felt like we didn't like maybe there's a attitude where people didn't want to ask questions. But I think in reality, what we need to do is ask more questions and have a lot more transparency in what we're eating, and having it's so important to understand where your meat is coming from, the way it's raised, the way it's cut, the way farm to abattoir to your table, so that we can make sure that we as consumers are pushing for the highest quality meat possible, the best raised meat possible, to like treat it in the best way from the very beginning to the very end. So like I think it's really important to not see meat as taboo, something, a disconnect, understand where it's coming from, respect it, and then ask the appropriate questions to know that what you're eating falls in line with all of those standards, all of those high quality standards, all those standards you really are supposed to be looking for when you're consuming meat.
And did you find that did you find when you were working that there's some positives? You were saying that there's a lot that you have to say, right, about your experience. What were the positives of working in a meat shop?
Yeah, so when I was working at the butcher shop specifically, like we were a holistic style butcher, so I really got an opportunity to let people try like these amazing cuts. I think one of my favorite things was like, oh, I'm kind of like skittish about cooking meat. I don't really know what to do. I don't feel like I'm kind of like it's overwhelming. It's like it's a lot. Like I don't really
You're
know what to
describing
do.
me right now.
Keep keep it like that's the important thing. Like keep it simple. Like directing someone like or showing someone how to cook like any type of meat, and having them come back to me and say, oh my gosh, this is the best thing I ever had, was the most positive, best part of the job. I really like seeing that people were enjoying what we were doing and enjoying what they were eating, and like coming back and getting more. That was my favorite part, honestly. In my like 10 years at the butcher shop, just learning all about what parts of the animal are best to cook where, and how to like properly break down
Right.
like the animal, and like this is best for this is best for this. These are some really cool cuts that you probably have never heard of before. These are the really popular cuts that everybody loves, and this is how we should cut them and cook them. Like that was my
Right.
favorite part. In turn, on the other side of that, I mean, it's definitely like working as a counter staff at a butcher shop or as a butcher is definitely a very physical task. Like you're constantly moving around.
Yeah,
Um,
I can imagine.
yeah, it's definitely like, I mean, even on holidays, right? When everybody is like stopping to enjoy the holidays, that's where what people love to eat, right? So that's where
Right.
that's where we kind of are working our like 10 to 12 like really long shifts, or 10 to 12-hour days, but it was all worth it because you got to see like the lovely product that people had in the end, which is like again my favorite part.
Okay, you're so right because every Christmas Eve, I'm the person. I'm the person in the butcher shop. It's me, you guys. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. Like I'm the one that's running. And Christmas Eve, 10 a.m. I'm like, oh, we didn't get a turkey, or we didn't get this, or we didn't get whatever, and I just want something ready made. And I just like I'm the one that runs to the butcher shop, and I'm like, what can you bring me to put together for a meal tonight or this weekend because we're closed on the 26th and the 27th. I see a really interesting comment here, so I'll read that. It's from Jennifer, and Jennifer says, totally agree. Worked in the farm industry for years, and consumers are not educated enough about what they're eating. Love truLOCAL and love the farms that you source from. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
And then someone asked, we'll quickly address it. If truLOCAL, can you get truLOCAL meat in Calgary?
Yes, we definitely can. You definitely can.
And then somebody asked if you could get it in the US.
No, future talks or future things to come, but not at the moment. But we're hoping at one day soon.
Okay. Well, hopefully. But hey, this is something that Canadians have, so I'm just really proud because we're always competing with the US. We're like, what does America have? And now we're just like, hey, we have truLOCAL.
Honestly, Canada has one of the best industries when it comes to meat. Like,
really?
you know, but Alberta, speaking of Calgary, Alberta, I think we have one of the best beef industries out there. So definitely awesome, awesome lands or pasture to raise beef. It's flat lands in a lot of Canada, so it's like the perfect environment.
I would never have, because I think the other issue that I was thinking was that, what the times it's snowing,
Right.
how are you raising animals then, and what are you feeding them, and how does that work?
Yeah, so I mean, with beef specifically, you're eating green grass. They can on pasture for the majority of their lives. They're eating green grass, and then on the winter months, they're consuming things like hay and silage, or fermented hay, or So it's you can raise. You can raise your animals out in the cold. You can raise the beef out in the cold, and you can give them hay and silage when the grass is not as green or prosperous, or they don't have the pasture to graze on.
This is the crazy thing that when you're talking, I'm just like, there is so much I don't know, right? Like it's just like there is so much. Lori Olson says, yes, nothing beats Alberta beef. and Karen's asking, how do you ship?
So we ship. We have several different shippers that we work with. So we put all our product in. It's completely frozen. We put everything in insulated boxes, and then we pack that box with dry ice, and it's delivered next day. So when it leaves our warehouse, it typically gets you between 1 to 2 days from shipping. So really quick, really easy to keep that quality there.
We also have another question. Amanda's asking, what about all of Alberta? Do you ship to all of Alberta?
I can't specifically say for every single zone. I definitely, there's parts in northern Alberta or really rural areas in Alberta where some of our shippers don't touch. Obviously, we're always looking to expand that, but I definitely recommend just going to truLOCAL.ca and just entering your postal code, and then just seeing if you're within our delivery area. We deliver to most of Alberta, but there may be some a few rural areas that we don't get to.
I'm really smiling now because I'm like, I want to ask you questions, but now everyone's asking you questions, which is good. Keep them coming. I want to talk about claims. So claims is that's our next topic. It's really huge. There's no sort of real understanding, in my view, of what some of the claims mean. I've even asked my friends today. I'm like, hey, do you know what this means? I texted some of my friends. Nobody knew. So we have here a couple of claims: free range, grass-fed. There's also what we were talking about, local grass-fed versus imported, or Australia, organic, raised without antibiotics, antibiotic-free. Could you cover a few of the claims and what they mean?
Yeah, so those are so many. There's so many.
I'm sorry, there's so many.
Yeah, no, I'll try to explain the most popular ones are the ones that I think people are most interested in now. So I'll start with grass-fed. Grass-fed isn't actually, as it's getting more popular, it's getting more regulated, but it isn't as regulated right now in Canada. So what grass-fed means to me, and what grass-fed typically means to truLOCAL, or how I purchase my grass-fed, is I need it to be on green grass, or not green grass necessarily. I need it to be on grass for the majority of their lives. Even so never given corn, never given any kind of vegetable grain, exclusively eat on pasture for the entire time that it's consuming, it's eating food. Typically, the way Canadian beef is raised, on pasture for the majority of their life, and then at the end, or the last 3-4 months of their lives, they're given it tons of grain. And what the grain does is actually adds a little bit more marbling, a little bit more fat to the animal, which is something that's like desirable. And it's not to say that like grain-fed beef is not good, right? There's some really high-quality grain-fed beef. truLOCAL carries a grass-fed, grain-finished beef as well. That's super, super high quality. It's just obviously where the values are to you. So something that's fully on grass for the majority of the life tends to have a little less fat, a little less marbling. There's a lot of conversation on the nutrient benefits of eating grass-fed. There's been a lot of studies to say that that grass-fed beef is more nutrient rich. It's more of a natural diet for the cattle. Whereas you have we're not to say that a grain-fed beef isn't as nutritious, but there is a lot of conversation around a grass-fed beef being nutritious, and that's to me animals that are being raised on grass or hay or silage for the majority of their life. Obviously, in Canada, we can't do green grass all the time. I'm sure you've seen other Wagyu, Australian grass-fed or New Zealand grass-fed out there too. Those are pretty popular.
Yeah, I see protein powders that are grass-fed too. They say literally grass-fed protein.
Yeah, for sure. Give me another one because I can't remember which ones you were saying on the top of your head.
Free range.
Free range. Okay, so free range is, I don't like that term, if I'm going to be completely transparent. Yeah. I think, not to say that you can't use that term, but it's not super controlled or super regulated. So what does free range mean? Like free range could arguably, if you think about in your head that you picture animals free roaming, running around as much as they want. But
that's the image I have.
But that's not may not necessarily be true for every occasion. Maybe they are let out an hour a day. Maybe they're let out once a week, or maybe they're let out once in their lives. And then then people tend to say we're free range. Let them let the animals free roam for a portion of their lives versus their entire lives. So I think with that particular claim, it's really important to understand when you're purchasing what that means to that particular supplier.
So there's no regulation in Canada that defines free range.
To define free range, not at the moment, or not that I know of at the moment.
Wow. I had a vision of chickens running around.
Yeah, and it could very well mean that for some farmers. There's definitely farmers that put free range on their packaging. That's their chickens are totally running around, have full access to outdoors. But make sure you ask that question: how long do they have access to the outdoors?
That's really interesting. What about raised without antibiotics? So Loblaws, which is arguably a stat just came out that 1 in 6 Canadians, no, is it 6 or 1 in 4? I will have to correct myself if I'm wrong. I think it's actually 1 in 6 Canadians shop at a Loblaws or President's Choice or one of the Shoppers Drug, one of the Loblaws owned grocery stores. And Loblaws has a pack of chicken that says raised without antibiotics. That's, I think, a President's Choice brand. I wanted to ask what that means.
Yeah, so raised without, it's in the name. It's an animal that's never given or treated with antibiotics at any point in their life, whether it be preventative or if they, fell ill and needed antibiotics. Why that came up in the industry is that people were concerned about the overconsumption of antibiotics. You can have the conversation about, antibiotics being prescribed by your doctor when you all the time. And the fear was that overconsumption of antibiotic would become immune to it, or these bugs or illnesses become immune to it, and then they're not as effective, and then you need stronger antibiotics. And it all came around the overconsumption of antibiotics, and putting antibiotics in meat also created that resistance essentially. So raised without antibiotics is exactly that. So the animal is never given antibiotics throughout their life. There's a lot of conversation around the ethics around that, or if it's a good thing for the animal. So for example, if an animal gets sick in an RWA program, it's likely treated or pulled out of the program, but not sold as an RWA product. I'm and this is my personal, and we have I sell RWA product. I sell product for which I'm going to explain now, that have been given antibiotic to treat the animal when they're ill. I used to be very against antibiotics being used with livestock, but then I had a sense of animals like us get sick now and again. Obviously, you want them to be raised in an environment to get sick, right? And not given antibiotics or needed to give antibiotics because of their living conditions. So always make sure you're doing your research around the farm or the farmer that you're purchasing from, making sure that they're raising their animals well. But animals from time to time do tend to get sick. I'm not a fan of what they call preventative antibiotics. So giving an animal antibiotics to just right off the bat or consistently to make sure that they never get sick. I think that that's a very poor use of the drug or but when an animal gets sick, is it more ethical to give the animal or treat the animal so that it gets better, or make the decision not to? I tend to lean towards I like a treated animal, but it needs to be weaned off or not be given antibiotics towards the end of their life, or it needs to not be in their system. I'm kind of of that school of thought now, but both programs, depending on what your values are, can work for you, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting. It comes back to what you were saying about, and I think this is similar to any industry, but it's always gray. The answer, we think it's black and white, but there's always room for gray. Maybe the industry that definition doesn't leave that room for gray.
Yeah, and I think when you're choosing the perfect cut of meat, you have to decide on what your values are. Is it budget? Is it is it age? Is it the grass fed? Is it the free range? Is it the RWA? What are important to you? And then when you find these things, or when you find these claims on your packaging, then start asking the questions about what does this mean to this particular source or this particular farmer?
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good point. And what we see organic a lot, organic, I know that that's a regulated certification. Yeah. Could you talk about that when it comes to meat?
Yeah, so organic is very, very regulated. So it's third party, any organic farm is third party audited, and just high level kind of aspects to organic needs to be given organic feed, needs to be free range for free roaming. It's never given hormones, antibiotics, steroids, any of that stuff. Very regulated, making sure you're following a structured, tiered, certified organic protocol. The beauty about organic and when you're purchasing organic is that it's so regulated that you're very much there's no gray area or lack of transparency as to what you're getting, because it has that certification. It's important you can't use that certification unless it is been third party audited or organic. You kind of have this baseline of all the quality or all the types of things that you may be looking for when you're looking for beef. So that no hormones, antibiotics, GMO free feed, organic feed, all that stuff.
Amazing. Got it. We have an interesting comment from Alana. And so she says, studies show the higher the grain content, the higher the omega-6 content in the meat. And the lower no grain gives lower omega-6 content in meat. So the feed directly affects how inflammatory the meat is for you. And then if I remember numbers from the study, full grain fed animals had a 1:19 ratio of omega-3 to 6, and full grass fed had, maybe that meant half grain, but full grass fed had ratio of 1:1.3. The closer 1:1, the healthier it is.
Yeah, so those notes are very valid. I've seen those studies too. So the beauty about grass fed is the balance of the omega-3 omega-6 ratio. There's I've seen so many conversations around the overconsumption now, without supplements and stuff, the overconsumption of omega-3s, or the overconsumption of again, I'm not a nutritionist, so I'm not speaking on what's better for you, what's not better for you, but based on my meat research, in order for the fats to function properly in your body, you need that balance of that omega-3 omega-6 ratio. And I've seen studies where you get that balance when you're consuming grass-fed beef over grain-fed beef. There are other nutritional benefits to eating grain-fed beef, but if that's what's important to you, then I've seen studies that lean towards that one omega-6 omega-3 balanced ratio, which obviously has a lot of benefit because they work in tandem together to give to in your body.
That makes sense to me. I've seen a lot of conversation around that too. We are now in arguably the most exciting part of the interview, where we get to pick your brain on cooking meat, on the mistakes that people make when they meet, on your top 3 tips around cooking meat. But I'll start with this question, which is that there are numerous things. So the we're always on the brink in the last year on a recession. There's a little bit, we're just like on this tiptoeing, the interest rates are up, all of that. And so I think, and people are busier and busier. We know that, right? People are so busy. You and I saw that last week, even just with each other. So I think the thing is, in terms of priorities, even when I think about our customer friends, there's quality, there's convenience, there's cooking. So basically, there's quality, convenience, there's budget, and then there's cooking, which I think we defined as how we cook, or what's the process. How do Canadians prioritize those things?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things that always have stuck to my head, and this is going totally against probably my revenue or any revenue of any mid industry, is that I'm a big advocate of eating high quality meat and eating less of it.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I I think that if budget, I think that you shouldn't compromise your food if budget is an issue. And I understand there are different, absolutely, there are different circumstances out there, and there's still some decisions you can make that fit into what your values are on the upper premium end, on the less premium end. But I think it's important to consider what you're consuming. So if you are in a situation where budget conscious, there's a couple of things you can do. Obviously, incorporate, you can eat meat throughout the week, incorporate some, heavier on the vegetables, eat less meat. And ultimately that could lead to a healthier lifestyle, depending on how much meat you're consuming and all that stuff. You can also consider exploring, for budget, you can also consider exploring things outside of your normal comfort zone, or outside of your box of your normal purchases, or outside of the box. So people tend to lean towards the things they know, like strip loin, ribeye, tenderloin, but obviously those are higher demand. And higher demand, and they're going to be higher end on the price point, where I encourage you to really try new things, like ground beef. That's the majority of what comes off of any animal. So it's the most sustainable way to consume meat. So, and it's also probably one of the most economical. So look up some recipes on how to make, a delicious, kofta, for example, with some ground lamb, or burgers, or obviously different gourmet style burgers or sausages are an awesome choice. Get things from other parts of the animal, like from the shoulder, for example, like a brisket. Dollar per pound is going to be way cheaper than your ribeye, or a boneless plate, or a chuck roll that comes from the shoulder too. Different cooking techniques, but you're going to get a lot better bang for your buck, and you're also probably going to get something super delicious.
That is what cooking was, because I was thinking about what it was. It was cooking techniques.
Yeah.
What about convenience? So, we've talked about, obviously, truLOCAL is an option in terms of having meat shipped to your door. Should people be buying frozen? Should people be buying fresh? Does it matter?
Yeah, so it really depends on obviously different butcher shops have different ways of selling their product. truLOCAL specifically, our product is frozen fresh. So we're not it's not necessarily sitting there fresh for a long time. It's processed and then frozen really quickly. So it really locks in that freshness. That's how I recommend eating. If you're gonna buy something from the grocery store, for example, and you're gonna bring it home and leave it in your fridge for 3 days and then put it in your freezer, and then that's probably you're gonna lose quality day after day. That's how I would recommend.
Called out.
I'm sorry. I'm exposing. I'm sorry.
So called out.
And that's not to say that it's bad, but obviously the longer it goes, the lesser quality you're gonna.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. But yeah, so when you're consuming frozen meat, just make sure it's frozen fresh. And then when you're purchasing fresh meat, meat has a longer shelf life at whole muscle, on the whole muscle side, than you would think. But something cut fresh from the butcher is probably going to be your best bet.
I did a food handler certification when I was doing farmers markets.
Mhm.
So for Switch, I did a food handler certification, and you're not allowed to leave meat outside for 2 hours. You have
No,
to throw it out. Like you,
definitely.
I did not know that. So now at home, I'm so, because people cook, for even like Easter, we just had Easter, people cook and leave it on the stove for 6, 7 hours, and then they're putting it away.
It's so funny that you say that because I feel like growing up, I used to eat like chicken cutlets off the counter and stuff like that too. And not that I'm recommending that. Nobody do that, right? Nobody do that. It's definitely a very cultural thing, but like when it comes to like food science and the safest like general like over like rules, it's definitely yeah, the 2 hour rule is a very good rule. But
Yeah, I'm shocked. And now I'm the person at the parties that's always putting the food in the fridge. I'm like, sorry guys, I gotta clean up. And they're just like, what are you doing? What are you doing here? I'm like, no, it can't sit here for 6 hours. I have
right.
a food handler
I
certificate.
know what I'm talking about, guys.
No, I had to sit in class and learn about this. So your top 3 tips. This is a great one. This is the meat of the show. What are your top 3 tips when it comes to cooking meat? When it comes to meat.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So there's so many things that I do or like done over the years that like, but like I have some tried and true. So I'm gonna go like protein by protein.
Okay.
I think because I think like a little tip on each particular cut. So like I think one of the biggest questions I get is how to cook your perfect steak, right? So I have a couple like tricks when it comes to cooking your perfect steak, and this is something that I actually never see people do. It's important to pull your meat out of the fridge like maybe 10-15 minutes before like you decide to cook it or even like yeah. So what happens is like you don't want that like chill of the meat from the fridge to go right down the center because then you're not going to get that even cook. So when you're cooking your perfect steak, you want to pull it out like 10 to 20 minutes before. You want to take it out of the bag. You want to pat dry all like the excess like yeah, so that you get a really nice sear on it. You want to just make it. So what I do is I take it out of the defrost steak, take it out of the bag, put it on a plate with a piece of paper towel, tap it dry with another piece of paper towel or cloth it. You can wash or clean cloth or whatever. And then put it in the fridge and then put it on the counter for like, 10 minutes or so. When heat up your barbecue, heat up your cast iron pan, and then you're kind of ready to go. So I always start with like for any good steak or any good piece of meat, you want to start with a hard sear. So whether you're doing it on the barbecue or your cast iron pan or your fry pan, high heat, high smoke point, a little bit of a high smoke point, oil, low smoke point oil. And then, yeah, give it a nice hard sear. You want to get that caramelized color on both sides, like that brown kind of like color. And then you're going to reduce your heat. You can either pop it into the oven, or what I like to do in the barbecue is like do indirect. So take it from like the high heat and then maybe turn on to like a medium high heat on the other side of your barbecue and then kind of cook it through. The other thing I would say in cooking the perfect steak is to make sure you let it rest after you cook it. So say you want to cook a medium rare steak, right? So a medium rare steak typically sits at like 135. I actually pull my steaks off. Oh, have a good meat thermometer. That's another. Oh my gosh, I'm going to give you so many tips.
Let's
Having
keep
a
going.
good meat thermometer is also really important when you're cooking meat. Take it. So I usually take it off like 10 degrees before it's like at that 135, and then when you let it rest, it kind of comes up to temp. But what also happens is like the juices kind of reabsorb into like the muscle, so that I don't know if you've ever cut a steak where it's like you cut it and it's like kind of like just goes everywhere, like everything goes like everywhere. You want to let it rest so that those juices stay in the meat, so you get a really nice like deliciously flavored piece of meat, because that's where all your flavor is. That's where all your deliciousness is. So deliciousness, I don't know if that's a word, but
Got
I'm
it.
going
So
I'm going with it.
we're making it a word. So do you want to
Yeah.
tell us about the meat thermometer as your second?
Yeah, well, for me, having good meat, like I cook meat all the time. Like I'd say like I would definitely say I'm good at it. I don't know, not tooting my own horn,
I
but
think you're good at it.
I
I think
definitely
you're
say
good
that
at
I'm good at it. But I can never live without my meat thermometer. I think having it and making sure that you're getting to those for food safety and for the perfect cook, which actually leads me to my next like point. Like I think the with poultry, for example, like one of my biggest tips is not to overcook it. I think people are so fearful of like that's something to consider. Obviously, be very safe and be very careful and making sure you're cooking your product to your like the internal temp that your poultry to the internal temp that it should be. But you don't need to cook a chicken breast to high heaven for it to be safe to consume, because you're going to be left with like cardboard at the end, right? You want to make sure you get to that, food safe and 165 internal temp, and then you're like let it rest so the juices reabsorb, and then you're good to go. And that goes for like all poultries.
Jess says she did this tonight for supper. Let the strip look rest, and it was so good.
Yes,
and
Amanda, so important.
And Amanda says that she definitely has a meat thermometer because of her fear of salmonella.
Yes, exactly. It's important to have for food safety, but it's also important to like for your perfect cook.
Yeah. And we do this. She's telling Lori that we do overcook pork and chicken. And so I do want to say I eat dry chicken all the time. So that's a really
actually have a little trick. If you are like a very fearful person of chicken, I actually have another little trick to like keep it super moist. When I do this, I've been doing this a lot recently, which is I don't have you ever brined your turkey at Christmas?
No.
Or okay, so like brining is essentially a concept where it's like you put your poultry or your pork in like a salt bath solution. I think it's like a quarter cup of salt and a quarter cup of sugar for every 2 pounds of meat. And then you can also add like a lot of aromatics, like, dried herbs or whatever in water. So essentially you submerge it into like a cold salt bath. And what happens is that the salt and the moisture kind of penetrate the meat. So that moisture, and then when you cook it, that moisture kind of stays in the meat. So it gives you like a evenly seasoned product, like so this because the salt's penetrating it. So you're going to get. It's important to season your meat because I think it really brings out the flavor. And by season it, I mean salt is important when you're consuming meat, or when you're cooking meat. If it's at minimum, obviously there's a whole bunch of awesome, delicious spice rubs and barbecue sauces and all that stuff you can enjoy. But at minimum, you definitely need to put a little salt on meat so it penetrates the muscle and for a more even seasoning, and it adds like moisture and to the meat, so it gives you like a more juicier piece of pork or a more juicier piece of chicken.
Good. I'm gonna really do that next time. That was your third. Yeah. Do you have 4?
Oh, I get extra.
Yeah, let's do it. There was one where you talked about a lot of people play it safe.
Yeah, well, that kind of goes hand in hand with like picking like your perfect cuts, right? Like, or trying to be like. I'm a very big advocate of nose to tail eating. I think that part of being a meat eater is you like respecting the animal by eating as much of it as you possibly can. So I definitely encourage people to consume all of the animals. So like I said from earlier, like cuts from the shoulder, like braising is a really awesome technique to break down those muscles and textures so that you really have a delicious, like there's a lot of flavor in that product. So breaking down like the muscle and the texture so you have a really delicious tender piece of meat, and a little more economical and a little more sustainable, because I mean there's only so many ribeyes, tenderloins, and strip loins that you can get off of an animal. So I encourage like making jerky out of the hind quarter, or making a really good rump roast, a dry rump, like kind of Sunday dinner with the potatoes and the carrots and all that stuff is a really awesome way to eat meat, or like there's the equivalents to pork and chicken as well, right? Like everybody tends to go for boneless, skinless chicken breast, but honestly the thighs are so delicious. Like you can make you can really I think that you can get a lot out of a chicken thigh. Like you can do like a curry or a fried rice with like some cauliflower rice and some or some like regular rice, and you can really push that so it can be really budget friendly. But you can because it's budget friendly, you can buy better, like higher quality, and you could enjoy the entirety of the animal. And you can also experiment in the kitchen, which is like the most, I think is the most, like, I mean, I like if experimenting in the kitchen is like, and learning how to cook is probably like the most funnest thing to be in the world. So definitely recommend it.
I think that's fun for a lot of our customer friends.
Yeah. I also said funnest, so that's a new word.
Deliciousness, funnest. We're just making new words. Yeah. Nicole, do you season your meat before cooking? That's from Lori.
Absolutely. So obviously everybody has their preferences to, so like for beef, for example, I typically season it with salt, pepper, like if you're keeping it really simple, or salt, pepper before you throw it on, like on. But I also, once I slice into it, I tend to like throw a little bit of seasoning after too, like a little bit of Maldon salt or sea salt, throw it on there after too, adds to the flavor. But anything I'm really cooking, I make sure to season first, whether it just be simply with salt and pepper, or like a marinade, or a dry rub that you, your favorite dry rub, whatever that may be.
Love that.
Okay.
I have one more question for you from that piece because this is just a really selfish question. Super selfish. What are some easy meals to make? Like really simple when it comes to even you when you're less on time, when you're short on time, what do you make?
When I'm short on time, my husband is like so carnivore. um, so a lot of like the things that we're making on a day-to-day basis are like, grilled steak, and then we slice it thin and we throw it over a salad. Like I throw it over a salad, or like if I'm grilling a steak, I'll grill some vegetables on the side. Like those are super easy. I'm a big fan of like, marinated products. They're like, I love like Greek marinated chicken breast or chicken thigh, and then I throw that, like I have those little tzatziki on a wrap. Like that's a really super easy meal to cook. Uh, I am a big fan of like, I buy a lot like on quick, like I buy a lot of the like jar curries and things like that. Throw that in with like, some vegetables on top of like a cauliflower rice or a regular rice. Like that's a quick go-to meal for me. I love to cook, but like my cooking happens on the weekend, and during the week I have no time for anything. So anything I can kind of put together in 20 minutes. And like meat is like cooking meat is probably one of the like like it's already done. All you got to do is add a little salt and
Right.
pepper, right? So for flavor, right? And you can throw like, and it goes with anything. So
And do you have so in India, that's where my family's from,
yeah.
but generally marinating is a huge deal. So, for example,
Okay.
butter chicken, you never make a butter chicken just out of the blue. You marinate it. Is that
Mhm.
something that you would recommend, or you've seen that is marination? Does marination help bring out flavors?
Oh, absolutely. So there's a lot of like cuts of beef, or chicken, or like, or that do better with marinade. Like they have a really kind of like loose grain to them, so the marinade really penetrates through. Like a slight acid, salt, seasoning, like all of that stuff for like really penetrates the meat, and you can get that flavor through. Like kind of similar to the concept of brining, where like if you put it there, like you're get that flavor, whatever that marinade may be, chimichurri, like I mean, like heavily like curry spice seasonings, or like any of that stuff is going to go right through the meat. You're going to have like an evenly seasoned meat, and it's going to have like that far better flavor. Like if I wouldn't recommend marinating all meat. Like if you're buying a 60-day dried steak, do not marinate that. Put that just a little salt and pepper on that. But like something on the fly, like pre-marinating and freezing in the marinade is also a good way to
Oh,
like be ready,
interesting.
because you can throw, like for example, if you're doing like a stir fry, like do a like like a soy sauce, sesame oil, like green onion, like all that stuff kind of combo. Like put that in a Ziploc bag, or even better, if you have a vacuum sealer at home. I have like a food saver that I'm not promoting it or anything, but I'm a big fan of having a vacuum sealer at home. Throw that in the freezer. When you're ready, pull it out, throw it in your fry pan, make a little rice, and you're good to go.
I love that.
The key with convenience is preparation. When you have the time to prepare, then you're going to be ready to like to go when you need it most.
I have so many gems from this live. I keep writing the timestamps because I'm like, I need to come back to this. Alana has a really good recipe for a chicken brine. So this is a sugar-free chicken brine. Save pickle jar juice, add 1 tablespoon sea salt to the jar, add chicken, and put it in the fridge overnight. I actually have jar juice at home, so thank you, Alana. Save tamed jalapeno juice, add one same, I think, with add 1 teaspoon sea salt to jar, add chicken, put in the fridge overnight. Done. That sounds delicious. Like that actually
Beautiful.
sounds
See, everybody has their own thing. Like everybody can make it, and it's like all the same content. You're gonna get
right.
end up with the same result. Different flavorings, where you're gonna end up with the same like juicy, delicious piece of
Yes.
meat.
So we have another question from Selig. I'm currently thawing a brisket. Would you suggest a dry rub cure or a marinade for that piece?
Um, my favorite way to cook a brisket is definitely hit it with a dry rub, and then you can either choose to braise it, so like cooking it in some kind of liquid, like a beef broth or a like oh, I mean whatever. Like I typically do like a onion, garlic on the bottom, hit it with a little red wine, hit it with the beef broth, semi-submerge it, and then cook it in like a Dutch oven. But that's like more of a winter meal. If you're doing it in the on the barbecue, like a dry rub and then a slow cook, add a little wood chip in there for that smoky kind of. If you have a smoker, smoky kind of flavor. Low and slow, depending on the size, is probably like what I would recommend. I love like when you're cutting into a brisket and you have that like kind of crust from the dry rub on the outside of it that like when you make sure you get a bit of it with every bite as you slice into it because it's like the best flavor and like blended in like brisket tends to be a little bit more marbled, a little bit more fatty, and like that's where the flavor is. It's like a delicious in every single bite.
I think truLOCAL should start a phone line where you man it and we can call
A
you
cook
and ask.
helpline.
Oh, guys, I think when we
I
post
love
the
that.
live, please request this. I need your comments that Nicole is on a live chat all day supporting us. Let's talk
My
about
favorite.
truLOCAL
Yes.
because that's where you work now, which is amazing. And what a great transition for you and happy for your anniversary. How does it work? I know because I've been a long time customer. I don't know if you know the story, but I actually Googled meat delivery. So that's how I
Mhm.
found truLOCAL. And then Mark, who
Yeah.
delivered it in a box.
Yeah, so the true local, honestly, the way true local is built, what our values are like exactly in line with what you're looking for when you're looking for like a high quality piece of meat. Like we like Mark, Arma, like the core team, they saw a need, and then I was on board slightly after they saw a niche for these small independent farmers that didn't necessarily have maybe not the skill set or the time because they were farming to bring their product to market. They were selling in farmers markets, they were selling in like small butcher shops, retail stores, definitely not big enough to sell in like these massive grocery stores, but small butcher shops. But there was a need for them to support them in bringing their product direct to consumer. So that's how kind of truLOCAL was born. We connect to these small farmers, small, medium sized. As we grow, like the farmers get bigger as well. And give them a platform opportunity to sell direct to consumer. So we source from several different farmers, from several different. We have a like we source. We have a location in BC, Alberta, and then Ontario, and then we also ship some nationwide product depending on what the product is. Sourcing this product and delivering direct to your door. So what you're getting from truLOCAL is you're getting a really high quality product. You're definitely getting a local product. It sits under a lot of the claims, like we have a full grass-fed line, we do an organic chicken, whatever those kind of values are, you'll likely find it on our website. And it's convenient because we're a subscription service, right? So it's kind of, you can either have a system where you set it and forget it. So you can get your box every 4 weeks, every 3 weeks, every 6 weeks of your favorite cuts, or you can go in and you can it's fully customizable. So you can kind of mix and match with what you want to kind of eat that week. So if, you want to make the most value of your box, you're going to have like, a ground beef box that with some brisket, all that stuff to get the most bang for your buck. But then you're looking for a little premium. So then you're going to go, get a box with some ribeye and some, really some chicken, bone and skin on chicken breast, all that stuff for a more premium type of box, fully customizable.
That's basically what we do. So for Brian
Yeah.
and I, that's what we do with our box. There's a couple months where we're like, okay, this is going to be the ground beef month, but we and then there's other months where for us to go out for dinner in Toronto, there was a customer friend of ours, Mark. We interviewed him just 4 shows ago, and he talked about this. He took his girlfriend out for dinner,
Right.
$200.
Yeah.
So sometimes Brian and I are like, okay, we're just going to make our entire truLOCAL box steaks because that's going to be basically our date night. Like our dog's down, our kiddos down, we're eating steak or we're barbecuing, and that's our time together. It's cheaper than honestly having steak at a restaurant in Toronto.
Yeah, yeah, you're definitely. I mean, meat is not like. I mean, like meat's not like, especially when you're going to grocery stores when you're adding that cook value to it. You're gonna make you can make a definitely a premium cut if you take a little time to make it at home. You're gonna have like a restaurant quality cut, and then you're gonna be able to get it for like a third of the price or half the price for sure.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you so much. We actually have a code today for truLOCAL. We did
Yes, you do.
this. It's called Switch Loves truLOCAL. Which is so sweet. So it's S Switch, just like turning on a switch. That's our company name. Loves truLOCAL, all lowercase. And that, I think, I forgot what that gets you, but it gets you a lot.
Yeah, yeah. So Switch Loves truLOCAL. I think the way we did is it gets you free. Like when you do Switch Loves truLOCAL, you get a couple free packs of bacon depending on the size box that you get. So truLOCAL has 3 types of boxes. So we have a small box, perfect for like a couple, and we have a medium-sized box, family box, perfect for a small family, and then we have a mega box that's like perfect for a family plus, like bigger families, or you wanted it a little extra. So depending on what box size you choose, you get a couple free packs of bacon in there, and it's a really good start to trying our product.
I love that. Okay, that's amazing. That makes me really, really happy. And where can people find truLOCAL? What's the best way?
Yeah, so just go to trulocal.ca. You can also find us on our socials. It's all at truLOCAL, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest.
We're like, you're everywhere.
We're everywhere. Yeah, definitely. But trulocal.ca is a very good start, and you can find us all there. Instagram at truLOCAL as well.
Yeah, and you just released a recipe. So Kaizen pasta is one of our, because that's a protein pasta made with lupin flour. That's one of our top selling products right now. And you just did a recipe with that, and it's a pasta bake, which looked so freaking deliciousness. There was a lot of deliciousness in that. I just want to really, really thank you, Nicole. I'm not going to ask for your personal information so we can all text you, but I have your personal information. So I'll just
text me anytime. I love giving tips. Or if any of your customers have tips, just like shoot them my way. I can send a email on anything you guys need to know. I love talking about this stuff, and I love supporting it.
Okay, you heard it here. Nicole has offered her brain to us for tips. And you know what? I'll post this live. So if anyone's watching this after, if you have comments on YouTube, you can go add them on truLOCAL's YouTube or our YouTube. We'll make sure to watch those and respond. They can be as specific as you want because Nicole knows everything. Nicole, thank you so much for this. This has been...
Thank you for having me. It's awesome. It's awesome talking about me.
It's been amazing. And we might have to have you back because this was really fun.
Anytime.
And this time you might actually have to supervise me cooking. I think that would be...
Yeah, we could do like a kind of cook sesh, or like pick a recipe and do it up next time for sure.
Let's do it. Karen says thank you, and Jess says thank you. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. This was really fun. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you on the flip side next week.
Thanks so much, guys.